Usually, people really love basic attack builds. Stormclaw and Kronstaff are always very popular. This season though, looks like the best basic attack build will be the Wind Shear build. And I think it's gonna be fairly strong. So, let's talk about Wild Winds. That's the name we're gonna go for. Let me know in the comments if you have a better name for the build. This name was chosen by the Frostman. The Frostman also has sent me this clip so we can take a look at the damage of the build. So as you can see, he was able to output about 8 million damage from the build. He played it on the last day of PTR and really no one had the gear for the build on the last day to try this out. So a little bit of history of elemental damage builds on PTR is that they got nerfed into the ground. About 90% nerf. Now, we have another way to play this type of thing in the game, and that's with the new aspect, Calm Breeze. So the caveat is that now you need an aspect slot for the elemental damage, and it's also a dot damage, but that's also good. We used to do like poison damage before. I tried a poison damage elemental surge build, but this instead is not flat damage, it's a dot damage, and that's better, and we're gonna see how and why in a second. But the upside is that now we do not have to use elemental surge on the weapon. We can instead use a different tempering, which in this case is gonna be damage to distant, and that's also great because we can scale this off the Thunderstruck node that is extremely overpowered. Let's take a quick look at the Thunderstruck node and also some of the glyphs that make this build better than elemental surge in my opinion for Druid. So Thunderstruck takes damage from close and distant, converts it to a multiplier, 20% of that, amazing. So now we can get a massive amount of damage to distant enemies and close and convert it, which you couldn't do with Elemental Surge because Elemental Surge isn't a storm skills. Wind Shear is. Now, it's kind of weird, but we're gonna be having a Poison Storm, a dot Poison Storm damage build multiplier. So many things that usually do not work together will work together in this build. An example of that is Bane. Bane also has been buffed to 15% chance to double the amount of damage over time on the target. This would not work with an Elemental Surge build, but now that it has been nerfed into the ground and we play a dot version of poison damage, this will work splendidly. On top of that, we also have the improved tracker, which makes sure that poison damage effects last 40% longer on the target, making this a great choice for us to stock our poison. Okay, this also has to be tested and see how it scales, because this glyph is known to be buggy for some stuff, and this build will need testing, but so far we're gonna go with Muff and then go and test for bugs once we can play for in Season 4. This build also very strong for leveling, and I'm definitely gonna try to level up with this build because I'm so bored of playing Pulverize. So let's go over the build now and see how this works. Let's go over the skills you're gonna be playing first. You're gonna be using Cyclone Armor for defense. It's a massive amount of DR. Petrify is gonna be for quick burst of damage and bossing. Blood Howl for attack speed and healing. Debilitating Roar should have pretty much a permanent uptime in this build, and it's a DR, Fortify and healing for us. We keep Trample for our CC break, and Wind Shear is the only skill you have to spam for damage. We do not use Crit Chance and Crit Damage, we take instead Max Life and Attack Speed, and we try to recover a little bit of the cooldown of Petrify with our Calm Before the Storm. We also get more Fortify from using our defensive skills thanks to Bolster. So, the build works in a funny way. We have Godslayer Crown, which is usually not the greatest item, but let's talk about this time why. It is a great item in this case. We're gonna be pulling enemies that are stunned. But how do you stun enemies or immobilize them or freeze them without Petrify? Because this is gonna be down most of the time. It's gonna be with Shared Misery, and thanks to the new mechanic of the game, Tempering, look at how many lucky hit chance to immobilize, stun, freeze, and daze you're gonna be having. So, we're gonna start with chance to immobilize on our boots, then chance to stun on our pants, chance to stun also on our gloves, chance to freeze on our chest. We're gonna be slowing with wind shear, because applying poison means that the enemies are gonna be slowed. And thanks to the concussive strike aspect, we also gonna have a lucky chance to daze the enemy, and any dazed enemy will take 20% extra damage. Now, this works with the aspect of shared misery. 50% chance that the crowd control effect will spread to other targets. Why do we have so many different types of CCs? That's because this build will be able to stagger bosses extremely quickly, which I think is very powerful thing to have this season, as bosses hit like trucks. And it's a great damage multiplier to have when you be playing pits. And if you do not know, guys, pits this season are gonna be equivalent to Abattoir of Zier tier 25. At tier 150 pit is gonna be tier 25 AOZ, and we do not have the kind of Tears of Blood glyph that we had in Season 2 to multiply our damage by 100 times and double dip. No, we're not gonna be clearing pits this season. It's gonna be unclearable content that hits really hard and has massive amount of HP. That's why a build that is not really a speed farming build, we are dotting the enemies, it takes time to ramp up our damage. That's fine, because mobs are so tanky and they do so much damage that having a consistent build that is consistently strong, consistently tanky, consistently doing damage, that's very good for the type of content that we're gonna be running. So, debilitating roar, like I said, we are looking for an uptime of this build that is very high. How we are gonna be achieving that is by having some cooldown reduction, some debilitating roar duration. For example, you can see here that we have debilitating roar, forgive me, we have debilitating roar duration imprinted or on our pants. Also, we have some cooldown reduction from Godslayer Crown. I'm thinking of maybe trying one-handed weapons for the totem, and maybe taking out willpower from the amulet for cooldown reduction. But we're gonna be casting attacks at 2.5 attacks per second, which should reduce the cooldown of debilitating roar quickly with hectic. And I'm looking for, I'm gonna be having, I think, a 6-second duration debilitating roar. I think I'm gonna be aiming for that with my tempering. Should be fine enough in my opinion, as the cooldown should get lower. Yeah, I think that should be pretty much fine considering how fast we attack. I'll have to tinker a little bit with that. Also, it doesn't have to be permanent uptime, it just has to be good enough. Also because, now let's go over the aspect and then we're gonna talk about the passives. So, this build has some really nutty aspects that other builds simply do not have access to. So, putting Moonrise aspect on a two-handed weapon should be a 180% damage multiplier. Also, we have the adaptability aspect, which is another 80% damage multiplier, and that's because basic skills just have really high damage multiplier to try and make them viable, which has not been something that have really happened in the past season. They tried, but Stormclaw was a little bit too weak, quite a bit too weak actually. Rapid aspect also is 30% attack speed, which is better than the classic 25% attack speed that you get for core skills. Again, a little bit better. 20% damage from concussive strike, plus the daze effect is a good aspect. And we have Calm Breeze on amulet. Don't freak out, it is a resource aspect, but it can be played on your amulet from this season. With the itemization rework, resource aspect can go on amulet, so all is good and dandy. Let's go over the skill tree. We have one rank of wind shear because it does not matter. The damage comes from the poison dot, which does not seem to scale from your ranks of wind shear. 3 points in Iron Fur, 1 point only in Predatory Instinct, and 2 for move speed in Digit Great, which I don't even think we need, but there was no other place to put points on. Quick chance we do not use in this build. Everything is gonna be attack speed, willpower, and max life pretty much all across the board, as we do not need to crit because dots don't crit, which is nice for a change. We have full points in Cyclone Armor. It's quite a bit of damage reduction against elemental damage, which is the main thing that kills you in this game. Vigilance, Ancestral Fortitude maxed out, 5 points in Debi Roar, and we really use the Preserving, Debilitating Roar healing to heal yourself up. We rely this on quite a bit. Blood Howl as well for the same reason, plus the attack speed. Attack speed always good when you try to reset the cooldown of things with Hectic. Nature's Reach. We're gonna be making good use of this. It's a very big multiplier. As you can see, it's gonna be 27% extra damage if the targets are CC'd from distant. Trample 1 point. Use this when you're CC'd. Full points in Resonance, Natural Disaster, and Defiance for damage. Petrify with the Supreme Petrify is used mainly for bosses or quick burst, because I do not know if I really want to have so many cooldowns being reset with Hectic. I think I would want to focus mostly on one skill only to reset, maybe 2. Blood Howl also gets reset by kill, so that's fine. Heightened Senses, need to try to juggle this buff up. This is a really powerful buff. And usually you wanna play Hunter Zenith to pump out Heightened Senses and Quick Shift, because they're massively overpowered this season. But I do not think you can actually kill stuff in Pit fast enough to make Hunter Zenith reliable. It might be something to use in Speed Farm build with more damage, more squishy setups, more greedy for softcore, but yeah. Ursin Strength is something that we try to keep up as much as possible, stay max life, and you get also the additional health for 3 seconds after you've been turning into a bear. We turn into bear quite often by spamming the Debilitating Roar. In theory, every 6 seconds or 5 seconds we should be spamming this, so the uptime of Iron 4 and the extra HP should be quite high in my opinion. Guys, let me know what you think of the build. I'm gonna try to level up with this build until I get my Calm Breeze aspect from Grading Labyrinth in Dry Steppe, it should be. I'm gonna be playing Pulverized till then. Check out the Pulverized build if you want to level up as Pulverized for the start of the season. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys on Twitch.